Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grid Talk podcast. This is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix review, and it is all about Oscar Piastri taking victory in Baku. Shouldn't have to press that twice. Anyway, welcome to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix review, and alongside us we have. Why do I always point that way? You're that way.
We'll get there. We'll get there in the end. I promise we'll get there in the end. How are we doing, my friend? How are we doing?
I am not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. Here we are again on the start of a back-to-back.
Yeah, more weeks of running back-to-back. I know, for example, a couple of people I know who work in the pits weren't in Azerbaijan because they're going to Singapore. So, great timing there by Formula One, as always.
Remember, carbon zero by 2030.
Yeah, definitely. As always, this is the preview. So if you've got your thoughts and queries, please put them into the comments and we can read from both YouTube and Twitch. And also, please like, subscribe, share, whatever else you can do to support us.
Or any donations of above £35,000 would be more than appreciated.
Oh yeah, very, very much appreciated. But first up, we've got to look at the Grand Prix results. So as always, if you haven't seen it yet, you need to look away for about the next hour and a half. There we go. We'll give you a chance to go away.
Next hour and a half.
Yeah, pretty much. Oscar Piastri taking victory from Charles Leclerc, George Russell, then Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Williams with a double point score in Albon and Colapinto, Lewis Hamilton, and then the final point scorer was Oliver Behrman, or Ollie Behrman, as he's more likely to be known. But what we're going to, it doesn't look as simple as that. Let's put it that way. So first up, we're obviously going to have a look at the race winner, Oscar Piastri, where he had to put up a very strong and stubborn defence against Charles Leclerc for what I would say was about...
Probably half the race.
Yeah, half the race or so, until he pulled away right at the very end when Leclerc didn't just fall off a cliff, he fell into a black hole and never returned. I mean, I didn't realise till results come up and it said it was 10-second lead in the end for Leclerc. Just shows how much that Ferrari dropped off at that point. But we'll get to Ferrari in a minute. Piastri, your thoughts?
Very, very, very solid drive. I feel like there's a Ferrari. It just feels like Ferrari blunt. It feels like Ferrari bundled this as much as Piastri won it, to be honest, because Leclerc was 5.5 seconds up the road before he pitted. Just get him in the just bring him in the pit 1 lap later, then just bring him in the pit 1 lap later than Piastri. There was no need to wait for as long as they did. That 5.5 second gap sort of eroded. He came out, and we know how good Piastri is, specifically Piastri is at getting his tires up to temperature as quick as possible. And I think that's the big reason why he managed to sort of get to Leclerc and drive by him. And also that the defending by Leclerc into turn one, like the less said, the better. Because, yeah, you're not expecting it, but geez, mate, like, you not only gave him the space of Baku, you gave him the space of Azerbaijan and the flight path from Azerbaijan to Singapore at the same time. So, I think Leclerc's got to be a bit better, but overall, a very, very impressive drive by Oscar Piastri. And on the week that McLaren come out and say he's the number two driver. So yeah, well done, lads.
Yeah, in words of his
manager.
His manager, not bad for number two. Just to be clear, in case some people jump on it. Oscar Piastri pitted lap 15, Leclerc pitted lap 16, but there was a half-second difference in the pit stop time, pit lane time, etc. So that's where some of the gap went.
My apologies, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I think what you're thinking of possibly was the way that Piastri took the lead, or had the chance to take the lead, which we'll get into very much in a second.
That's absolutely it.
We had, I mean, it was a solid drive from Piastri. I've told you this already. I was sitting there with two Australians, which was probably not the best thing to do when Piastri's winning and Norris is having to come through the field, especially after the talks lately and all of that. Piastri drove well. I mean, I've heard, here he is. You know, I've seen these posts on Twitter. Oh, look, he's got 2 wins in 18 months. Lando's had 2 wins in
5 years, 6
years, whatever. These must be people who don't watch Formula One, because obviously McLaren have not had the car to win races until this season. Realistically, maybe the end of last season, but you know, realistically this season. So there's a huge difference. Also, you got to remember Piastri's on this height of a wave, but I still think there's a tyre issue there with Piastri's driving. We saw it in Zandvoort. He was probably half a second off the pace of Lando there. And we got to remember Lando's come through from what should have been 17th, turned out to be 15th on the grid after penalties and people changed engines and stuff like that. So I wouldn't jump for joy as a Piastri fan right now and go, look, we're miles better than Lando, kind of thing. But his composure under pressure was very, very good.
He's a lot more, but the facts remain, he's out the last 7 races. He is the one that has now claimed the most points in the last 7 races. Granted, everyone decided to give Max Verstappen an advantage at the start of the season, which is why we are where we are at this moment in time. Yeah. But the facts remain, and I've said this multiple times. I don't think Lando Norris is good enough for a world title challenge. Don't think he has the mentality. And to be perfectly honest, Baku, again, yellow flags or not, that McLaren should be good enough to generate the lap time on the first lap where he wasn't lounging in 17th and he needed the banker. What did they say every single time especially in qualifying? Yeah. Get out, get the lap done, so you're not in that position. I don't care if he had the time or not. He bottled it again, and great recovery drive, stuff like that. And you know, we'll get into, because to be honest, for me, I think that fourth position is flattering, because if Checo and Carlos didn't bring the Spanish War, the Spanish War as they did in the last sort of 2 laps, it's a totally different position for Lando. Look, I know what you and I differ. I've given him his props, but since he's had the car, he's not had the bottle. And you know, I'm gonna bring it up again. When Lewis was in the car, in the title-winning car at McLaren, he got in, jumped on it, he was ahead straight away. Max, when he's been in a title-winning car, he effectively, whatever we say about that certain year, when he was given a title-winning car, he seized the opportunity, was ruthless, took it. Same with Michael, same with Senna. Lando's not of that cloth, and now. He's got. Sorry, mate. He's got to put up shut up now.
I am honestly agreeing with you in terms of the. I don't think Lando's a great, and he might become one, but right now he's not great. He's just. I still think he's one of the best drivers in Formula One. Don't get me wrong. Before the people start jumping on that, but Max, you know, obviously Lewis, I think. Charles is maybe just ahead of him because of his qualifying pace. You know, Charles is qualifying. Charles on a single lap is
he's probably
just pucker.
He's probably the quickest driver.
Yeah,
single lap.
I'd agree with that. Especially now Lewis is slightly struggling with qualifying, and I mean he's getting on a bit. But in terms of Lando, I think you probably put him just behind them three. Personally, I still think he's ahead of Piastri. Hi Jimmy, thank you for popping in. I still think he's ahead of Piastri. I think Piastri is a little. I mean, people have been saying to me, "Oh, Norris is inconsistent," and things like that. But the one thing he did do, I mean, in that championship challenge, and this is something that come up with because of George Russell in Q1 not backing out or things like that. Lando could have very easily just planted that and then took the hit with a 3-4 place penalty. He did actually back out of it. Yeah, like you said, shouldn't have been in that position in terms of qualifying. And yeah, the 6th place flatters him. But I don't think in a million years McLaren ever thought they would be catch without a safety car, would be on Max Verstappen with 2 laps to go and passing him.
Disagree. That cars that we've been saying since what was the race after after Monaco? What was the race after Monaco? What was the race after Monaco? We've been saying since Canada that car's one of the quickest cars on the grid. After the Canadian Grand Prix, it has been the quickest car on the grid. Lando Norris has the same amount of wins as Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, and Oscar Piastri in the quickest car on the grid. Like by far and away, the quickest car on the grid at this moment in time. I'm sorry, I don't care. You've got to get the job done. I think as we've sort of discussed on this podcast many times, I'm definitely much harsher, much more ruthless than sort of you are. You've got to get the job done. I'm not here for friends and anything like that. You have to get the job done. This quote unquote title race, which I still say is over. Obviously, that's where you and I disagree massively. But I'll just sort of scroll the points now for everyone. He should be within, at the worst case scenario, he should be within 15 points of Max at this moment in time. He still shouldn't be 60 points back. There shouldn't be a 3-race gap.
No, I can understand that. Sorry, I'm just having a look at some stats on the finishing positions and that of the 2 McLaren drivers, because obviously the talk going into Baku was that Piastri will play the team game, and I've got to be honest, I think he actually did play the team game this weekend, and I said this to a few people yesterday. At the end of the day, in terms of we're just having a look, title fight. So Lee thinks Grip Fuel welcoming. He thinks the title is still on. We'll get onto that in a minute in terms of who would be involved and things like that. But saying at least 3 drivers in contention towards the end, that could be something that definitely comes up. But in terms of Lando and Piastri, this weekend, if Piastri was Perez or Bottas or Rosberg or
Barrichello
or Irvine or Coulthard or Frentzen when he was at Williams, any of these drivers, and we're going back. Fisher Keller's another one when he was alongside Alonso. Massa when he was alongside Schumacher.
Trulli when he was alongside Alonso.
Yeah, only counted in Monaco once, but that's about it. But everybody of that were, or or whatever you want to call it, were drivers who would. Webber was another one. If Vettel isn't going to win, we need Webber to win. And that's the whole point of a number 2 driver. And I know they don't want to call Piastri number 2, and I know he's still in title contention. But like we've constantly said, for him to close this gap, it's going to take Lando 8 points over each weekend to catch Max Verstappen. 8 points more. So for Piastri to catch him, even though he's now less than 100 points behind, we're looking over 10 points per weekend.
I believe it's 12 or 13 points a weekend.
It's now got to the stage where unless Max picks up a DNF, it's going to be really difficult for Oscar to take it. So at this stage, you go, okay, well, Lando you've got to back Lando. There isn't a question about it. But these weekends, Oscar's done the team game. He's beaten Max. He stopped Charles getting 7 more points. If Charles had got 7 points, he would have been 12 off Lando. Instead, he's 19. So it's almost a race victory behind. So it helps a huge amount. And then you've got him bringing home the Constructors' points, which means they leave the Constructors' Championship. So at the end of the day, Piastri has done his job. And as soon as whether Lando didn't do his job in qualifying doesn't suddenly not make Lando the championship contender and Piastri not. Piastri suddenly replaces him or whatever. The gap's too big now, I think. £10 says frustration will kick in for Max. Yeah.
I think frustration's already kicked in for Max.
That's why these rumours of talks with Aston Martin are speeding up very, very quickly. But this is what we've both said. I know we've both said this since 2021. Where not since that race.
Do you know next year we need a 2021 counter in the corner somewhere?
Yeah. Not that race, but just generally since 2021, Max has had it all his own way.
Yes, yes.
And you have them little moments where somebody does get in there. Singapore last year was a perfect example where Max was absolutely nowhere but dominating the title. All of a sudden, he's going, I want this, I want that. Things aren't happening, mistakes creep in, etc. We could almost be saying, and we'll talk about this one in a bit. No, not happening. What I'm hearing is if it did happen of Max going to Aston Martin in 2026, Stroll would be going off to WEC. Is what I'm hearing, but who knows? Depends how long Alonso stays around, doesn't it? Really, you've got to pay. You don't have to pay Lance to drive, and if you're bringing in Max Verstappen, your budget can only take so much. Especially with Adrian Newey alongside, who's now, what is it, rumored 30 million a year.
Yeah, that's before bonuses.
Yeah, well,
that's an obscene amount of money.
You have to perform before you get bonuses. But anyway,
that is an obscene amount of money for an engineer there.
McLaren now leading the Constructors' Championship. Obviously, a little bit bigger gap than they expected going on to the final lap, which we'll talk about in a minute. But bigger gap, now looking very good, pretty much safe for the Constructors' Championship. It's just probably whether Ferrari catch Red Bull now.
Which to be honest, I think they will.
Pierre, hi, the sign HD. Imagine how many points Red Bull would have if Perez left space. Exactly. And how many points Ferrari would have and how many less Red Bull would have had. Can't do the maths. But Ferrari would be breathing down Red Bull's backside.
Well, no, I reckon.
Oh, no, Perez would have been up there, wouldn't he?
I reckon Checo would have finished second. So that's plus 18. Take 3.
How was Checo finishing second? Sites had just passed him.
I said I reckon Checo ends up finishing second.
Oh, you would have thought he would have done.
Yeah. Because I think he'd have. Because down the second straight, they were level one and he was on the inside, so I reckon he'd have got him. So I'm going off my hypothetical. So add 18. Take 3 off for Leclerc, but you add is it 12 or 10 for finishing fourth? It's 12, right?
12.
Let's take off the 3, so plus 9. So and then take off. I'll do the maths quickly.
He'll do the maths quickly. But generally, yeah. In the whole grand scheme of things, a great weekend for McLaren. Still continuing to look after them tyres as well. And for those who don't know, it's the first time since McLaren have led the Constructors' Championship since round 1 in 2013?
2013. 2013.
Well, 13 with K-Mag and K-Mag's only podium in Formula 1, should I say, and Jenson Button. And somebody made a good point. I think it was P1 Tommy. Was that possibly the worst car ever to lead a Constructors' Championship?
I mean, it's got to be.
It's got a shout. It's a great shout. Except for random podiums, there's always like a random podium somewhere, isn't there? That somebody got in the first round, and all of a sudden Jordan's leading the championship. But I just can't think of a worse car than that 2014. It was 2014.
Sorry,
car.
My apologies. Yeah.
It comes second and third on the podium after Danny Rick got disqualified. I can't even remember who won that race. Rosberg?
Rosberg won it.
Rosberg, yeah. And then McLaren got the 2-3. Alonso in Ferrari in 4th. Yeah. And Sergio Perez in 10th. Not much changed, really.
Not much to change, has it?
Years. But yeah, so have you managed to do their maths?
So Ferrari ended up 9 points. Would have ended up with 9 points better off.
Okay, so it wouldn't have been as close as expected.
No, and Red Bull end up. I'm just doing the Red Bull now. -4 plus 18. Red Bull end up they're 14 points better off.
So they'd actually have lost ground.
Yeah.
So it was all a tactic by sites to close the gap.
Pretty much, yeah.
But yeah, it also saved Charles Leclerc's championship challenge, which we'll get onto in a split second. But yeah, Piastri, great drive. Lando, we've got to remember Lando actually did a great job of holding up Perez, who pitted a couple of laps earlier than Piastri.
Yeah.
Sarcastically said, go on.
Sorry, especially to that castle section, because you're not getting past in that second.
Yeah, I mean that didn't look anything like Abu Dhabi 21. With Perez, karma comes back to bite you, Sergio. But yeah, as Lando said, he was just protecting the tyres a little bit more through that section. That's all he said.
Absolutely.
And at least that time loss did not cost Lando the chance of getting Max Verstappen, because that would have been awkward. But
yeah, no, it's funny.
I'll throw this out there straight now. McLaren, we've said it. Piastri is mathematically there. Do they still 100% back Lando Norris if they want to win this Drivers' Championship?
Nope. Not anymore.
You think they back Piastri?
I think it's fair. I think it's fair game.
Okay.
Lando needed to claw back. In my opinion, Lando needed to claw back more points than he did on Max. Too many open goals missed by McLaren and Lando. They should have won. They should have won in Monza. Let's be perfectly honest. They should have won in Monza.
Yeah.
Here, Lando's not done the job. And what? Just looking at the points quickly. 254 players, 220 players, 222. He's only one race win behind. Yeah, no. If Norris has another weekend like this, which to be honest, I can see coming. You can't back Lando. Lando's not helping himself. This is the issue. You have to deliver on the track. He's not doing that. So why are you gonna back Lando when Oscar's the one who scored the most points in the last 7 races?
Fair. Moving on. Charles Leclerc. He's out of it. Now, we did a season sort of ready what's going to happen coming up video back in the summer. And we said, even though Ferrari were third in the championship, we're more likely to see Hamilton, we got that one wrong, and Piastri in the championship challenge, and Leclerc, because we didn't think the Ferrari had the pace. Now, at Monza, it's had the pace. Here, it's had the pace. Both very low downforce setups. It had the pace in Monaco. We're going to Singapore next. So that could be another strong circuit for Ferrari. But Wajid, are we looking? Could we have a sneaky Ferrari world champion before Lewis even turns up into that car?
No, because I don't trust them in Mexico and Brazil, unfortunately. And Qatar, the Ferraris have been nowhere in Qatar.
To be fair, I'm not sure if Ferrari have ever done very well in Abu Dhabi, but I'm not sure they've ever been on podium.
That's a really good question, that.
I'll check that out, but yeah, carry on.
I was about to say Kimi, but Kimi was in the Lotus the last time I remember. But yeah,
he was.
So that's my issue with Ferrari. I don't trust them. I don't trust them in the upcoming races. Leclerc is driving the wheels off that thing. In my opinion, he should have won in Azerbaijan. He really should have. He was the quickest driver all weekend. Stuck it on pole. Got the drive he wanted off the start. 5.5 seconds up the road, and he just could not get close enough out of the castle section, coming onto the back straight, coming around those final 2 corners before you end up on the 2-kilometer straight. And the times he did, I just think he was too cautious with Oscar. Oscar, dive, essentially F1 24 EA Sports dive bombed it to take the position. And I just think Leclerc didn't do the same. And I think Leclerc, because on the second DRS straight, it wasn't, for some reason this year, it just wasn't generating the same amount of overtake that it normally does. I don't know if they moved it or whatever else.
Shortened it.
Sorry, yeah, well, exactly. There we go, and that's what, fix what wasn't broken in the first place, guys. Well done, F1. I just think he should have taken a risk off the into turn one a bit more. And then we saw in the last sort of 2 laps, driving in that dirty air, according to Ross Brawn, ground effect cars don't cause dirty air anymore, and everyone will be driving within 1/10 of each other at all times with no problems. Cook the tires, and in the end, a very lucky boy to finish second, to be perfectly honest. But Leclerc should have won it. He should have won the race.
I mean, I think Leclerc should have won it. He admitted he was very soft with Piastri, and it was a very late move by Piastri. I don't think anyone of us saw it coming at that particular moment. Could there have been a bit of a thought in Charles's head of, Lando's obviously coming through the field, but he's coming from quite far back, and I'm in touching distance of Lando, and Max is having a dog of a day. 18 points is better than throwing this in the wall.
I mean, he could have, but Max has been having dogs of a day since Adrian Newey said bye-bye. So when the championship leader is best part of 70, 80 points ahead of you, you're not at the point where you can play it cautiously anymore. What was this, race 16?
Race 17.
You have sort of 7-8 races to go. You're not at the point where you can be softy, airy-fairy about this. You have to take risk. The only person that doesn't have to take risk and just has to finish is Max Verstappen. Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri don't have that same luxury. They have to dive bomb. They have to take over the top risk. And in Leclerc's situation, he's definitely the number one driver in Ferrari.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to be the back driver at Ferrari. So to be honest, me saying like worst case scenario was he was going to finish third. He was going to finish third because Ferrari were going to tell Sainz stay behind him for the sake of the championship. So worst case scenario, he finishes third anyway. Just take the risk.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it both ways. I mean, obviously, Leclerc needs every point going right now, but to go lose a wheel against Oscar, who he has, he's only got a 13-point gap on now, but obviously Ferrari now, what is it he's took out the last few races? Let me just have a grab of Charles's stats. So he's this season he's done. Where's it gone? Why is it coming up with this? This is not what the details I was after. Results, here we go. For Charles Leclerc in the last, I don't want prize results in the last few races.
So he finished second in Azerbaijan. He was first in Italy.
Yeah.
he was third in Holland. He was third in Belgium, and he was fourth in Hungary.
So
Britain's is sort of last dump because that's where Ferrari stuck him on the intermediates for 2 laps and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, if he wasn't stuck on them intermediates, we could actually be looking at second in the championship already. But I will tell you right now, like, I don't think that Ferrari is. I still don't think it has like outright pace, as we call it. I still think if you set up all 4 of the top 4 cars equally into the right section windows, I think it's the 4th fastest car in its window. But it just seems to be a little more comforting. And again, had this conversation when people were saying Oscar Piastri could be championship contender next year, etc. I think we've got to look at it hugely at the idea that if Ferrari continue this pace, Lewis Hamilton's going to be unstoppable in that car if he clicks with it straight away.
Potentially. Let's not.
Yes. Yeah,
I think. Yeah, we have to. You have to take Lewis's recent qualifying into sort of consideration, which we will get into. But this is, again, in my opinion, chat come for me, comments come for me, all you like. Don't really care. This is my opinion. This is why people perceive Charles Leclerc as a better driver than Lando Norris, because Leclerc, for the most part, is getting the most out of machinery. That's probably second, third, at times 4th quickest car on the grid. Whereas Lando's not producing in what is widely regarded as the quickest car on the grid.
No, I get that.
And you and I have had this conversation, and it unfortunately keeps on rearing its head. If you put Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton in either of those cars, you are in 2021 all over again.
Yeah, I still, I do think the McLaren's the quickest car. I just debate whether we're, and I've already stated, I think Charles is one of the top 3 drivers in Formula One, and I think he goes about it so quietly that people don't even notice. People say, oh, Lando might have an ego, or Oscar's got an ego, or Max has got an ego. There's something about Charles Leclerc where he just quietly goes about his business. And there's going to be one day, possibly in the future, where Charles Leclerc is announced as world champion and nobody will have noticed him. He'll just turn up in the pits and they'll go, oh, hang on a minute, we haven't added Charles points up yet. Oh, look, he's got more than everyone else. That's how it feels like it's going to be.
100%.
And it could. I mean, what we got coming up? We've got Singapore, which we said we think this weekend they'll be quite quick. United States, Ferrari aren't shabby round.
I mean, he finished third, and he got disqualified there last year.
Yes.
But he was in the hunt.
Yeah. Mexico with Ferrari haven't been terrible, but Charles hasn't had great results around there. Brazil always hit and miss, depends on
Brazil they've not been good in Brazil since Massa left.
Yeah.
Since Massa
Las Vegas, they could have won last year. They were in the contention for victory last year.
Qatar, I've never seen them race well at.
Yeah, and then Abu Dhabi, which I can confirm they've had over 10 podiums at. They just never won. So,
okay, fair enough.
That could be... I'm going back on myself slightly here. I do think if Ferrari have a good Singapore race...
So just for those who can't see, Grip Fuel in the comments said, "Here's one for you. If Max finishes the rest of the races no higher than fourth, Charles third in every race, and Oscar and Lando trading personal Lando's champ. Hypothetically, mate, that's absolutely fine, but realistically, that's not going to happen because what have McLaren? I'm sorry, everyone giving this hypothetical of McLaren finishing 1 or 2. What have McLaren shown since they've had the quickest car?
Well, I think the other thing you could say about that is let's just say that Lando takes majority of those victories. It doesn't have to be Oscar second, as long as it's not Max second. It doesn't really matter. Or third. Which, let's be honest, right now, can you see Max Verstappen getting another podium this season? It'd be difficult.
Mexico.
He probably will. No doubt about it. He probably will. And he'll probably try and pull it out back. But imagine this. Let me just throw this idea out to you. We're at Abu Dhabi. There's a few laps to go. Mercedes have got it together for the final round. So at this moment, Charles Leclerc is winning the race.
And then there's a safety car with 1 lap to go.
No. No, I didn't wake up from the nightmare. No, Lando Norris... for whatever reason, like you said, has had a bit of a wobble. He's not second in the championship. Charles is there. And Max Verstappen's winning the championship by 1 point. But he's running 4th or 5th. And right behind him is Lewis Hamilton in Mercedes. And if Lewis passes Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Ferrari take their first championship since 2007, and Lewis Hamilton goes to that team, having helped them win the World Championship.
Do you imagine they'd make him a saint in Italy?
He would be the new Pope.
Honestly. Because they'd call him the world champion without even being the world champion.
But just imagine the toxic nature that would be going through social media right then at that moment. And
what if they collided?
So that's what I was thinking. If Lewis is going, it's only Mercedes. It's been shit anyway. And just blame the tyres. Blame the tyres like George Russell does. Anyway,
it's a nice segue.
Yeah, it's a great segue. The Mercedes Lewis Hamilton breakdown. Obviously, we said over summer, we were like, Lewis is really on a roll, and he no doubt about it, he was on a complete and utter roll. If I just bring up the stats for Lewis Hamilton in the since the summer or whatever, he had his win in Britain, he had his win in Belgium, and he's had an 8th in Netherlands, 5th in Italy, 9th in Azerbaijan. All without great qualifyings, to be honest. I think he's been... Azerbaijan should have been better. But what do you take on this? They tried something with Lewis's car. I mean, there's been a lot of controversy about the idea that Lewis seems very quick on a Friday. They take that setup and then ask him to try something else.
Don't get it. And then he's consistently saying that when he's found the perfect tire temperature on a Friday, that they change the tire temperatures on the Saturday. Because He's constantly saying they're colder than what they run in Friday,
Yeah.
and he doesn't get. Look, I mean, George Russell is now resoundingly beating him in qualifying, so that qualifying battle is done. I think it's 13-4 or whatever else. So that's now done. I,
But let me throw that at you. You say it's what 13-4, whatever it is. But ignoring the disqualification in
Belgium.
Lewis Hamilton is still ahead of George Russell.
George has a DNF in Silverstone as well, doesn't he?
Agreed, but that happens. A DQ is kind of a bit more random.
Fair enough.
So at this stage, you still have Lewis Hamilton ahead of George Russell, and we've said it before. They always seem to merge together in a race in some kind of way. They didn't this weekend, obviously, but there's got to be something. I mean, I'm not saying I'm. I don't think there's sabotage.
But do you believe Mercedes are trying to push a narrative where George beats Lewis by the end of the year in the point standings?
Possibly, but I don't see why they'd do that through this kind of sabotage. But what I do believe,
because they're not going to finish. They're not going to finish any higher than fourth. They're not going to finish any lower than fourth in the constructors.
But that's the point. They've got nowhere to go in constructors, so they're going to gain all the wind tunnel time. They've got what money's going to come in. They're also going to gain a load of budget because they're no way paying Kimi Antonelli what they pay Lewis Hamilton. If they are, Toto's hit his head. So, you've got a driver lineup that's probably going from, let's say Lewis is earning £50 million a year, George maybe 10 maximum, so that's 60, to probably a budget of no more than 15.
I mean, even for argument's sake, if you want to go 20, I like super over guesstimate.
Exactly. So you're talking a huge amount of budget that Mercedes can keep. I think that also we've had this narrative of a Friday trying to find setups. Lewis seems pretty settled on setups, knows how to set up a car. I'm thinking they're trying to get as much information out of Lewis Hamilton
as possible.
Because what they found out is George setting up the car is very
hit and miss.
Not hit and miss, but very safe.
No, but
I think drawing the outright pace out of a car, George's setups won't do it. But to get it for a race, it will.
But I think George has also openly said that he leans on Lewis's data, doesn't he? He's openly said that he looks at what Lewis does and he takes bits and bats.
Well, Lewis said over radio this weekend, he said, look how I'm trying to drive the car. So that makes me think what they've done is put some crazy setup change on to see how, because obviously we're still dealing with a car that was ironically designed for naught pods. Even though it's like not had naught pods this year, it is randomly designed for that. And the idea of, Lewis needs an engine change, do that, but then change the setup of the car at the same time and cover their backs almost, kind of makes sense. And it's just to almost, as I say, I think they're trying to squeeze Lewis like a sponge and get as much data, information that they can go, here we go, look at this is what we did last year, this is what Lewis did. We tried this, we tried that, with what we would say is the world's best driver. We've got all the information possible. And, where we finish in the championship means nothing to us right now. It doesn't mean anything to Lewis. I mean, let's be honest. If Lewis wants somebody to win the title, it's Lando, due to Brits, because he's got McLaren links as well, or it's Charles, because he would love to go there next to the world champion and beat the world champion and go, 8th time world champion. And he's got one. I mean, just think about Ferrari having another champion at last. So it's a huge thing. I mean, Lee's come in as well. Whatever Mercedes save on Hamilton's salary will probably be offset by recruiting someone that is better able to predict George's finishing position. I think it'll also be offset by the amount of damage the two drivers do to the car. I'm just saying. I think there's going to be fireworks in that team because it's a perfect shootout. Because if George cannot lead the team next year, that's kind of him done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He has to be Antonelli. Like, it goes without saying. There is no conceivable. He has to be Antonelli next year.
I mean, look how many years it took Alonso.
Whatever Merck say on Hamilton's salary will
Yeah.
probably be offset by recruiting someone that's better and able to predict George's finishing position. No, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately for Mercedes, all the engineers have been picked off by Red Bull and Aston Martin. So, you know, and Adrian knew open from the podcast, he knew Adrian knew he was never going to work for Toto given how he feels about Mercedes and 2021. So, yeah, look, we'll see. And I think you and I have both said, and on this podcast, said 2025 is a huge year for George Russell because if Antonelli does come into that car, beats him straight away, then I think the George Russell hype train stops and, to be honest, self-combusts at the station because he came in with a lot of hype from that F2. People felt like, the British commentary and the British take was, oh, well, he's been kept too long in the Williams. He should have been the one supporting Lewis in 2021. The outcome would have been different. George Russell wasn't going to help Lewis Hamilton in that 2021 battle. He's been given the car. Jumped in the car. He's been okay. Has been great. Yes, he's come into the car when Mercedes are at their worst in the best part of a decade, and that's unfortunate for him. Mm-hmm. But you have to convincingly beat Antonelli next year, without question, without fact.
I mean, I'm just having a look here because I also, while we're on the subject of Mercedes, we'll just have a look at what's that. Oh, sorry, yeah. Kimi doesn't have an ego, so don't expect fireworks. But if he's on George's pace, he might get more support. Yeah, that's where the fireworks will probably come from. I don't think it'll be. It might be the two drivers butting heads from George's side, but whether it will be from Antonelli's, I don't know. But in terms of Mercedes, let's say George Russell, who was the next junior driver to come through, doesn't take off. It doesn't work, and Kimi's the number one man, and they don't go and get Max Verstappen. It's kind of hard to know where to turn because their junior program, they've got the Jamaican Alex Powell in Formula 4 at the moment. That's kind of where Kimi was. I mean, he's been very good in terms of kart titles. Hasn't picked anything up this year yet. In Italian F4, which is the highest series he has raced in, he is currently, it says 5th, but for some reason we have an American flag next to it. That championship has already been won by Freddie Slater, who's absolutely dominated the Brit Taz, who, maybe some people will start having their eyes on Freddie Slater. But the next one is I will say, newly crowned this weekend karting OK Junior World Champion Kenzo Craigie, and he's 13.
Something, yeah.
So he's not going to be in an F1 car for the next 5, 6. We're looking for him. You're probably looking 2030 and beyond, aren't you? For if you're wanting to bring Kenzo through, even at the pace Antonelli's been brought through, because he just won't get his license until then. And I will, obviously, huge congratulations to all the Brits who raced at PFI this weekend. And Joe Turney, if you're out there, I'm sure today is hurting like hell. The only title you haven't won in karting, and it was lost on the last lap. I couldn't quite believe what I did, but maybe Mercedes will be looking there in terms of bringing the next driver through, but you're going to have to find a stopgap because Kenzo is far too young to be the driver next in line. But generally, Mercedes, big year next year. Decide who's leading the team and move on from there. Maybe we'll see. Well, I don't think Vesti will be in there now. Maybe it'll be Colapinto. Who knows?
Maybe. Maybe.
They're going to have to find some experience, aren't they? If George Russell does go off to Audi.
Absolutely. But speaking of number 1, number 2 drivers, Sergio was faster than you.
Welcome back to Formula One, the Sergio Perez.
No, I'm not welcoming back. He showed up in Baku, and that's it.
Like, I will tell you,
he's always been good at Baku. That's it. End of.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. For people who don't know, he is the most successful driver in Baku with 2 wins and 5 almost a 6th podium, but 5 podiums. Been a terrible year for Sergio. Seemed to get a bit of pride from Max at Monza suffering so much as well. So sort of went, oh, well, I'm not the only one who has problems with his car. I do expect him to go well in Singapore. He does. Whether we then go back to the original Sergio Perez a little bit later on in the year, we'll soon find out. I think we probably will.
His World Cup final is Mexico. That's it. That's all he's looking to.
Well, what was interesting before the weekend is Red Bull came out and said, we're probably going to announce our AlphaTauri Red Bull Visa Cash App, whatever. I always call them AlphaTauri, but AlphaTauri Toro Rosso. Anyway, their lineup.
I always prefer the Toro Rosso name. Just
yeah, I agree. They're going to hopefully announce their lineup in the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be before we get to Mexico, and is it COTA the first race back after the little break?
It's COTA, then Mexico.
So by Mexico we're going to know.
Sorry, then Brazil, then Las Vegas, for whatever reason.
And one reason I think if it was a case of Sergio is 100% safe in that seat, you'd be announcing it in Mexico. But because he's not, they're not going to suddenly go, oh, by the way, Sergio Perez's last Grand Prix. Now, if you're trying to sell tickets to a Mexican Grand Prix, you announce it beforehand to say, this is Sergio Perez's last Grand Prix.
He's in the Red Bull seat. He's not going anywhere.
I still think this Daniel Ricciardo swap and Liam Lawson coming in is going to happen.
He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. Danny Rick's been the Red Bull don't have any. Yeah, Danny Rick has been awful.
I still see Red Bull chasing Oscar Piastri long term, by the way. But yeah,
I mean that's a different.
Yeah, Red Bull had a sodden weekend. Let's put it that way. It wasn't great. Danny Rick is past it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people can say it is. I think there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that he's doing for Red Bull, which is going, hang on, this is kind of all right. But this it isn't. I mean, yes, great drive by Sergio. He did seem to be lacking a little bit near the end. You know, he didn't seem to be able to make it past Leclerc and then got caught by Sainz and then obviously had the incident, which we'll get on to now. High beats Derby Aussie. I was waiting for that to pop up. In terms of the incident itself, where do you lay blame, or do you not lay blame? We're not going to be one of them podcasts which say there's got to be blame, because we're so adamant that racing incidents do actually happen. So. Yeah, Wajid, what is your view? Do you think Perez, Sainz, or do you think it was just one of them?
6 on one, half a does the other, to be perfectly honest.
I completely agree.
I think Carlos is moving. Carlos is moving right. Absolutely, he's absolutely moving right. You can see he's moving right. Cheers, mate. Nice to feel nice to feel welcome. Carlos is moving right, but how much space does Sergio need to leave on the left hand? Sergio can move left. Sergio has all the space on the left hand. There is no need for Sergio Perez to be as close as he is. As close as he is. As Bisa says, Carlos is trying to keep to the toe of Charles Leclerc because Charles is gone because those two because Checo and Sainz are squabbling.
But I would say there,
well,
why is Charles not being positioned by Ferrari to say, look, Carlos is on the outside, make sure you're on the right hand side of the track?
And if he did that, then there could have been 2 Ferraris and a Red Bull in a wall.
No, but like at the point where they made the collision, Leclerc was further enough ahead, but he was in the middle of the track. If he had been on the right-hand side, giving Carlos the toe down that straight, it'd be sorted.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
I'm not saying Charles should have done. I'm just saying Ferrari should have mentioned it.
But it doesn't. At that point in time, you're a four. You've driven before in cars and stuff like that. At that point in time, where your tires have gone, and if your team were on the radio to you saying, "Oh, by the way, can you give Wajid a tow? But can you give Wajid a tow while you got no rear tires?" You really give a monkeys about me at that moment in time? I mean, come on, you do not care about giving me a tow at that moment in time.
I'm not saying he cares, but I'm just saying Ferrari should have. You know, it just depends on the whole situation. But Sergio, for example, they haven't been known for quick decisions. So, going to the actual incident, 100% racing incident. The straight isn't straight for a start. Where Carlos used because I mean, all this time, if you look back at the American tracks and the old Phoenixes and that, the white line was the wall. Monaco, the white line is the wall. You can't get. But what they do in Baku is they set it slightly back out of a corner. So you've got the white line wall, and then they start to merge together a little bit further down the straight. So Carlos has to come across slightly, because if not, he's going to end up in a wall. He has a car's gap, but that gap's going to close, almost like Sergio Perez Monaco. Kind of similar there with K-Mag. At the end of the day, the barrier bends. K-Mag has to go somewhere. But yeah, so generally, I just think racing incident is done. And what you notice is Carlos had looked at it, went to the press, went, I'm not sure. It looks like a bit of racing. Sounded a little bit like it was his own fault. And then Sergio's like, no, it's Carlos's fault. Carlos shouldn't have done this. Carlos pulled. Sergio, you got desperate. You got desperate because you saw a podium flying away in your best result of the season.
That's literally what it comes down to. One has a win, and he knows he's not there next year, so he's happy. He's just happy to perform as much as possible. The other one is fighting for his life, fighting for his job, fighting against the tidal wave, aliens, the U.S. presidential election. I mean, whatever you want to throw against him, that's man's fight. Just leaving the space. There's no need to be that close. And like you say, the barrier starts coming inwards as you come round. I believe that's turn 2 to turn 3. Just you probably would have got the drive anyway. You probably would have got the drive. You would have beaten him into turn 3 more than likely.
Yeah,
just let it go. But yeah, I mean,
and also to add, Sergio, I don't care whether you're pissed off at somebody or not. You do not get out the car and go push somebody's neck who you just had a crash with into a concrete wall. I'm surprised he didn't get fined for that.
I'm surprised he didn't. That was me. I'd have slapped him, to be honest. But...
Well, Carlos hadn't had a chance to get out of the car by then. He was still catching his breath. But yeah, so Red Bull generally didn't have the best kind of way. Did he? What, push his neck? Yeah, he did. He pushed his helmet. But yeah, no, it's been seen him walk across and sort of tap him on the helmet as in like kind of push him across. But it wasn't it wasn't like really badly pushed. It was just enough to go. You don't do it because if somebody's damaged their back. Yeah.
But ultimately Sergio Perez has lost his Max Verstappen's gain because he gained 4 more points. That's 4 more points on Leclerc. That's 4 more points on Oscar. I mean, the gap between him and Lando was going to be minimal anyway. So
yeah.
I believe instead of
whatever,
so whatever. So, but Max Verstappen wasn't a happy bunny all weekend.
I've got to say, I mean, a lot of people didn't notice this because of the crash, but with a couple of laps to go, they actually went for soft tyres at Red Bull because they had the gap to Alonso.
Yeah,
and
because
then just as he come out,
he was going to go. He was going to go for the
fastest lap, and he had just literally come out of pits. And I would have howled with laughter if they had got that wrong and come out behind Alonso and ended up losing the position due to pitting for fastest lap. That would have been ironic. But we do have to say, FIA, yet again, maybe got the call a little bit late in terms of safety car, but
what, you mean 3/4 of the lap?
Yeah, I mean, I get why they try and carry on letting the cars race, but what you got to remember is they were battling for 3rd place. There's the rest of the field to come through, yeah, as you probably saw from the onboard of Ollie Behrman and Lewis Hamilton, who both managed to nick points off Nico Hulkenberg at the last minute because of this. Going back to a green flag with debris all over the road, a bit of a crazy idea again. But yeah, bring back Massey. We could have had a last lap shootout. Exactly. I just don't get this thing. I mean, if you go back to 90s, early 2000s, if we'd had that, you red flag it and you just don't restart the race.
No, but you do restart the race. You have a 1 lap shootout, man. What's wrong with you?
We are green. We're meant to be trying to go green as a sport.
We're
driving around for 2 laps for no reason.
And that's why you have a red flag and go green lap racing, because you bring the green flag out because we've gone green. 1 lap shootout. That's all we needed. Everyone could have binned it. We could have played Dodger. What's wrong with you, man? This is 21st century F1. You finish regardless. Forget we talk about driver safety, but if 2 drivers bin it in a spot where someone else might be overtaking further down the field, then let them drive into the back of the cars as well.
I mean, I will say one thing though. Talking about finishing no matter what. Yeah, Sergio, I think you finished. Anyway, we're going to move on.
No, so my question to you before we move on.
Yes.
So I don't think we'll get around to the video, but we did have a video where we were going to predict we were going to do our own scoring. Yeah, we were doing our own scoring between sort of now to the end of the rest of the year. We may do that in the summer break. Depends
what happens in Singapore.
Yeah, it massively depends what happens. It massively depends what happens in Singapore now. At this moment in time, who is winning the World Drivers' Championship for you?
Lando Norris.
That's all I wanted. Right, cool. Now you can move on.
Well, mind you said there's no title fight, so it's obviously Logan Sargent. Anyway, speaking of segue,
I thought it was Nick DeVries.
Williams double. The move has been successful, and Williams scored 10 points in a Grand Prix for the first time since Belgium 2021. Yes, okay, that wasn't a Grand Prix, and Latifi just qualified 9th and got a point, and George got a podium for qualifying. But it is the first time they've had double points. I think it's the first double point scoring race for a while since USA last year.
USA last year.
But certainly not to the amount. It's put them now ahead of Alpine. What a result by the Grove. Moment of silence when it hits him that he was the problem. I don't know if it's 100% that, because obviously,
I mean, a good 98%.
No, I mean, part of it was because he put himself. I think he put himself under a lot of pressure. Whereas Colapinto's got, somebody said to me they just don't understand why Colapinto's in the car, and I'm like, because look, he's gone and got points, and we've got 10 points, and we're going through. There's nothing to say that Williams wouldn't have been that quick around Monza and that quick around USA anyway. So let's see what Colapinto does Singapore, circuits he may not know as well. So little bit different, but I do think a really, really good drive by Colapinto, amazing drive by Colapinto, and even better by Alex Albon. I mean, did you hear the comment after the race by Alex? We put this strategy on because we thought they'd pit and then we'd just sit behind them and get towed along. We were too quick. Now, I ain't heard a Williams driver say that for a while. We were too quick for our strategy. So he ended up, third at one point, just running along with Lando behind. Yeah. And actually, I think it kind of helped Lando a little bit because he could preserve his tyres and go that little bit longer. Because as soon as Albon pitted, he floored it and disappeared. And I think them hard tyres will keep going for another 3 races. The rate Lando seems to be looking after. But a great result for the Grove squad.
Absolutely, and given sort of Alpine struggles to score points this season,
or be classified in a qualifying session, that would help.
This could be the difference between 8th and 9th in the constructors, or to be perfectly honest, Colapinto had my reservations. I still do have my reservations because these are tracks he's raced at before.
Yes.
I said, let's see what happens when he goes to somewhere he's not raced. Singapore, mate, have fun. Probably the most grueling track on the calendar. Yeah. Like the way the drivers sort of like look like they're exhausted when they finish the race. So let's not take away. I mean, in quali 2, he beat him. He beat Albon. Excuse me. And he genuinely looked very quick all through qualifying. He was there or thereabouts. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for the sort of split tire strategy on Albon staying out as long as he did, Colapinto may have beaten Albon. It's just Albon just found that sort of extra race pace. But tough luck, Logan. Tough luck, Logan. I mean, have fun in IndyCar or WEC or Formula E, because you're never coming back to this sport ever again, mate.
Yeah. Colapinto, as I say, a lot of people saying, why is he in the car? The thing is, Colapinto never really looked, he's looking good in F2. He never really looked like, he's going to be the one who's pit next. He's going to be the next Formula 1 driver. So when you get this opportunity, why not take it? As we saw, it's ended up with Zach O'Sullivan losing his drive, Luke Browning coming in for him and doing a really good job. I mean, all the rookies who came into F2 this weekend did a brilliant job, which we'll get into some other time about Formula 2. But great result. Colapinto has 9 Grand Prix overall to just prove what he can do. And if he can prove himself, then going back to a year of F2 and then maybe trying to find an F1 drive is still on the cards. If he just did rubbish for 9 Grand Prix, he's got 9 Grand Prix.
Yeah.
He's given it a go. So these performances are really going to give him a chance of saying, oh, hello, I might be able to get into somewhere next year. And especially as a reserve driver, he's not going to be able to do FP1s, but at least he can do some reserve running and try and move forward. And, yeah, maybe Williams might look at him, because somebody like Sykes isn't going to be looking to stay at Williams for over a year. If he can get out after a year, he'll want to go.
Yeah, unless they've got a title challenger.
Yeah, I very much doubt it. But if somebody comes along and suggests, say Red Bull come along and suddenly Max leaves and you go, oh, we've got nobody to put in, let's get some experience. Carlos, will you come back? Then you suddenly, Carlos is going to leave Williams to go to Red Bull. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, amazing result for the Williams team. Will they produce the same in Singapore? I don't know. Probably not.
They will in Vegas. I think they're a team to watch in Vegas.
I mean, the problem is you had him as the team to watch in Monza as well, and everywhere that's been quick. And this is the 1 week you decided not to put him as a team to watch.
Yeah.
So don't put him. So if David puts him as a team to watch, just like go against everything.
Yeah, I'm sure my friends over at Grove will definitely be stopping that. Anyway, our final bit, which of news or things from a Grand Prix, was the newbies. Obviously, we did have Colapinto there with a brilliant thing and brilliant result, scoring some points. Also, the first ever driver to score points for two teams in his first two races of Formula One. Oliver Behrman has well and truly now announced himself in Formula One. Yes, Haas were quick this weekend. Outright pace, qualifying, he was quicker than Hulkenberg. I think Hulkenberg, I'll be honest, is probably holding his hands up and saying, I'm kind of glad I'm not hanging around to be your teammate next year, because Behrman is really proving himself. In the race, they stated he was trying to save his tyres, even though he was defending like hell in the first stint. But a really good opportunistic move on his teammates at the end of the race, even though we say it shouldn't have happened. Took that point, and now he has 7 points and sits 14th in the championship, I want to say.
No,
or 15th?
15th, I believe, because Danny Rick's 14th on 12.
So he's currently 1 point ahead of Kevin Magnussen, who he's replaced for this weekend. Obviously, the Ferrari points were kind of a given. If he finished a race, he's probably going to get points in a Ferrari. Points in a Haas. Depends whether it's a good weekend. Maybe we picked the Vries Monza Williams weekend where Haas are just quick. But I think he's done a really good job. He's been very critical of himself. I mean, in qualifying, he was 11th, and he's slapping the steering wheel, wondering why he's not in Q3. He's got a point in the race, and he's like, oh, yeah, but I could have done this, this, and this, and it would have been higher. And it's like, whoa, mate, you're only on race 2 of your career. I think Haas are going to have one hell of a driver on him next year.
I think they are. Excuse me. I think they are as well.
Do you think Esteban's reading his contract? Where's the exit clause?
I don't know. I want to be. I'm going to be slightly cautious given the hype of drivers who come in, had a race or two to perform, and then been blown out of the water the next season. Nick De Vries. So let's see. I mean, for the opening 2 races is very good. If it wasn't for that last lap, Hulk does beat him. He was with Hulkenberg all race, but excuse me, but I mean, Hulkenberg had driven away fairly, had got past him fairly fast. So I'm gonna reserve judgment till next year. When I see him full time in the car next year, then we'll see.
They are really sniffing behind RB for 6th in the championship as well. So that's going to be the 5 points between those two teams. You could possibly see Haas sneaking 5 points from now to the end of the season.
Absolutely.
Whether you can see RB nicking anything else, possibly not. But yeah, certainly a great driver, especially he's on the Ferrari Junior Academy. He threw himself into that full pace. I know he's had money behind him, but Ferrari obviously backing him all the way. And I guess the whole idea will be to look at Ollie, for either when Charles Leclerc leaves or when Lewis Hamilton leaves.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
He's going to be there for one of them, isn't he?
He will. So, I mean, let's see what happens. I find it funny that the recent crop of sort of F2 drivers that have come in and taken seats have not come in with the same level of hype as we've had of previous F2 drivers, and arguably shown up a lot better than the F2 drivers that go.
I will say one thing. It's 1-1 between Behrman and Hamilton. They've both they've crossed the line between them. You tell Ollie Behrman that he's going to do 2 Grand Prix and he's going to finish pretty much equal on time with Lewis Hamilton. He would have jumped for joy, I think, or been highly critical of himself. But both of them finished battles, and we saw Lewis going up to them both in part for Franco, and even if you can't remember Franco's name, Franco Colapinto and Ollie Behrman congratulated him. Just to think him and Alonso were in Formula One when these guys were 5 years old. It's crazy to think.
The thing is, for a lot of F2 drivers that are now coming up, Lewis is to them what Michael was to this sort of generation, and Ayrton was to this generation of drivers. These guys are chasing to be Lewis. Like this is what Lewis is to them, like that dominant aura driver who's just incredible. And to be racing with someone like that is probably like, oh my days, I'm here sort of thing. So, and also it's a nice touch by Lewis as well to go over to the rookies each time and say, look, amazing drive, get going.
He does always seem to do it, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I don't want to go back to Lewis, but I think that's why people still see Lewis Hamilton as the face of F1 and not Max Verstappen, because Lewis, I believe, is the only driver on the grid that's as big of a name or bigger name outside of F1 than all the other current sort of drivers on the grid.
I mean, we're still waiting for that book from this man.
Yeah.
I think did he say 10 or 12 years for the book? If it's 10, it's coming out next year. Maybe you could put in that about what happened this season. That'd make the book 10 times longer. Anyway, predictions very quickly.
On to everyone's favourite time. So, let me go down.
I can't even remember what we put. So I think I put somebody as a surprise for P5. I know that in one of them.
So for qualifying, I had Hamilton 5th, Verstappen 4th, I had Piastri 3rd. Did you get 3rd or 2nd?
Piastri was on front row.
Oh, Norris 2nd, and Charlie Leclerc as 1st.
Yay!
1 point.
What did I get?
Mr. Magpie, you had Verstappen as 5th.
They were 6th.
You had Sainz as 4th.
Yeah.
You had Piastri as 3rd.
Yeah.
You had Norris as 2nd. Excuse me.
Okay, so ignore Norris, because I put Leclerc on pole as well.
Yeah.
Ignore Norris. Everybody I had was like one position off where they predicted. So
yeah, but it still only means you got 1
still
point.
not.
So,
anyway,
yeah.
well, one.
No, you got
I got Leclerc.
So race positions here at the bottom. I had Verstappen as 5th. I had Sainz as 4th, which he would have been.
Yeah, he would have been.
Which he would have been. I had Hamilton as 3rd. I had Leclerc as 2nd, and I had Piastri as 1st.
So that's 1, 2, 3 points.
Yep,
that's
3.
4 points for you overall. And I had.
So I'm gonna go front to back for you. You had Norris as 1st.
Yeah.
You had Leclerc as 2nd.
Woohoo!
You had Sainz as 3rd.
It could be.
You had Hamilton as 4th.
Hmm.
And you had Daniel Ricciardo as 5th.
Only 8 places off. What are you on about?
So
I mean, let's put. Yeah, you can have that one, but I mean, I just like to make it because I mean you've got to think I'm not in the mud beats that I've done a lot better than Wajid if we went over the whole season.
I've done. I'm on a. But since the summer break,
he's on a Charles Leclerc run of form.
Since the summer break, it's title charge-esque, you know.
Yeah, he's on a Charles Leclerc run of form at the moment, but that is oh, hang on, that's me in the background. I don't want that. So what we're going to do, it's like me saying Stroll was going to win and being right if nobody else finished. Well, no, because he didn't finish, so it depends when people would have finished whether Stroll would have been above him. Anyway, that is it for the prediction. Just read the word prediction in front of me. The review show. I thank you all for being here. Wajid, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, guys. Thank you, Beast and Grip Fuel and everyone in the comments. The sign he's like, honestly, you guys being in the comments, getting involved in the show, it genuinely makes this like podcast just so much better. So really, really appreciate your guys' time as well being here. Honestly, thank you so much.
And stay with us because I've remembered this time to raid on Twitch so we can see other people. So basically, we've got loads of things going on right now. Tonight will be the Formula Ford soft race on iRacing, so we'll be on for the normal time for that. So let's see if we can have 12 different winners again, like we did last season. Crazy that I didn't pick that up on commentary last time. And then tomorrow, hopefully, the iRacing streams will be back. It just depends what's going on in the background. To let you all know, I have started the Duncathlon, and no, I've got bugger all. Actually, I've done 5 Formula Ford races and finished second 4 times. The win is on its way. I'm the Pato Award of Formula Ford. So just having a look now. Let's see who we can raid. I'll tell you who we could go and raid. If we're going to be talking Formula 1, shall we go say hello to? Shall we say hello to? We could go watch Dale Rage at iRacing. Or we could go to Pondon, who's doing F1. Who else is doing F1 stuff? Let's have a look. Is anybody doing pit? Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for popping in as well. I'm just trying to see who is actually on Twitch at the moment. Yeah, we could. I'll tell you who we'll raid. We will go raid the man himself, who will be doing some iRacing painting, I think, at some point. But he will also be talking about this weekend's Grand Prix and stuff, as he always does on a Saturday. On a Saturday? It's not even Saturday. On a Monday. I need some sleep. Anyway, we are going to go and raid a guy who said he will come on the show at some point, so that would be really good. And former eSports presenter Red Eye. So enjoy yourself over there. And if you're on YouTube, please remember, you haven't gone anywhere yet. You'll still be here. So we'll magic that raid over. And please like the stream on YouTube. Watch the stream on YouTube. Subscribe. Definitely subscribe on YouTube. That seems to be a bit quiet for some reason. I don't know why. And I will see you tonight. Wajid won't be on the commentary tonight unless he really wants to be.
No, I'm on my way to London.
Lucky boy.
No, I'm not lucky. Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah. And we will see you all very, very soon. But enjoy Red Eye if you're on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and let's get the channel moving. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.